Welcome to the Whitetail Watch, brought to you by Hoyt's Bow Hunting Whitetails. Today is October 22nd, and I'm going to take you through what we're seeing here at the farm and then what we can expect behavior-wise for the week ahead, focusing on this coming weekend of the 25th and 26th. Hoyt's Bow Hunting Whitetails is brought to you by Redneck Blinds, Code of Silence Apparel, the Hunt Stand app, Whitetail Institute, research equals results, B3 Archery, Muddy Outdoors tree stands, Stealth Cam trail cameras, My Outdoor TV, and Hoyt. The deer behavior on the farm this past week has been kind of strange, really. We haven't been hunting a whole lot, and I'm not seeing very much daylight activity at all, even on cameras in locations that we have not been into since we put the cameras out 6 weeks ago. So it's not anything influenced by, human intrusion or our own hunting pressure or, anything unrelated to just what the deer are doing. I can't say I've seen this before. I know we've talked about the lull, and it's hard to categorize every year precisely because I don't even think biologists can predict exactly what the whitetails are going to do. So it's pretty hard for somebody like me to say, well, this is what they always do during this week. So all we can do is take a look at what's going on and then react to that. But right now it's been pretty slow daylight-wise. I'm seeing just the least bit of mature buck activity during the day. Maybe every day on one camera someplace you'll get a nice buck fringing toward daylight, but most of the activity is during the middle of the night. And I know that's going to change. And if that's the same thing that you're seeing, don't be too surprised because that's, like I said, that's what I'm seeing here. And that's not typical, I don't think, for this time frame. We've talked about the lull a little bit, and I'm a big believer in it. Everybody has their own definition of what that is, and I don't really want to get into that. They just aren't moving as much. And if they are moving, it's back in the timber, away from places that are easy for us to sort of keep tabs on. So let's just say they're not coming out much. So what does that mean for us this coming weekend? That's the big question. The 25th has always been my unofficial start date for really getting into the rut hunt. I always figure by then you're getting enough daylight activity from the mature bucks that it's worth going into some of your better spots, taking that risk that you're going to educate a few deer. You're going to give up that element of surprise that you get with the first time you go in. You don't want to do that until the bucks you're after are moving some, because there's no point in educating deer when there's not a chance for success. So I always figured the 25th is kind of that soft start. But I'm not going to go in this year from what I've seen so far. I'm going to wait until probably a week from now, the 28th, 29th. That's really going to be when I start getting after it. I like that 4-day period from the 28th through the 31st, 28, 29, 30, 31. Halloween always seems like a really good time, and it's going to hit on a Friday. So that means that you're probably going to want to wait and not hit your spots too hard this weekend unless you're seeing something different than I am. I'm just going to kind of ease into it still. I'm going to keep my best spots fresh until that 28th through the 31st. One of my favorite days of the season over the past few years has been the 29th of October. I've had a lot of success right around that time. And I don't want to be pushing things too hard before that. Getting so impatient now. I mean, I'm probably more geared up for the rut than what the bucks that I'm hunting are, it seems like. There's 3 or 4 here that I would shoot that I found on camera so far, but they're just not moving much in daylight. So it's time for me to be patient. And maybe that's the same thing that you're seeing, but let's just say you're wanting to get out this weekend. You only have so many weekends to hunt. You got to take advantage of it because, you just don't have unlimited hunting time. I can push things off and I can be more patient because I get to hunt more often. So your situation might be different. If you're going to hunt this weekend, I think it's worth starting to hunt mornings. I've always said October 25th is that time when it starts to make sense to hunt mornings more. And again, I've already explained, why I feel like that time frame is a good start point. Gosh, I just wouldn't go into your best spots yet. I know you've got a handful of spots that you just can't wait to hunt. I would hang back from those. I would get in. If you've got a few areas that are fringe, but are in the timber a little bit, maybe some funnels going around the end of a draw, or maybe it's a brushy fence line or something like that where you can get in and out really quick and easy. You're not having to go deep into the timber where you potentially impact deer coming out, at the end of a morning hunt, or going in, at the swell, in or out, really. I mean, it's hard to hunt those spots without the deer knowing. So the point is, you save those areas until you feel really confident that it's worth the intrusion. And for me, that's not yet. But that doesn't mean that you can't hunt. And it's also a good time if you got some doe tags and you want to put some meat in the freezer. This can be a good time for that still. I would just be a little reluctant, like I said, to go deep into the timber unless you've got a really good plan and you really can get in and out of there clean, or there's some kind of pressure, against you. I think if you're hunting public land, this would be a good weekend to maybe push things a little bit because you're going to be ahead of the crowd. Most people take that first part of November off for their vacation time, and you're going to see a lot more pressure in the public land starting after next weekend, not this coming one, but the one following. That's when the action is going to really start picking up back in there, the human pressure. So it might be a good time to get ahead of that this coming weekend, get a couple of good hunts in, and then back off for another week, and then, fight the crowds and go back in again the week after. That's probably not a bad plan, but if you have more control over your hunting area, it's still the time to be patient. So your stands, they're going to be most productive, are probably going to be on the funnels, the travel funnels. And if you've got a scrape line, this last part of October can be really good for that, because bucks make scrapes on their travel routes. They don't really go out there like, casting a lure and making a scrape and hoping to, lure a doe in. They just make those scrapes along the routes that they're using. So the scrapes tell you where a buck is traveling. And this is a time of the year when they're still on those patterns a little bit. So hitting a scrape line this weekend would be a really good plan if you know of a spot that historically, starts to be opened up this time of the year, or if your scouting has shown you a spot like that. That makes a lot of sense. So that's my advice for right now. A little bit more aggressive than what you've been hunting, but not going into your best spots yet. You're still about a week away, in my opinion, to make that type of a strategy move. Well, I appreciate you joining me. Good luck this weekend. We're going to be out hunting, so I'll keep reporting on what we're seeing and what I'm picking up on my cameras and what I'm hearing from my friends, and kind of keep you in the loop. We'll see you right back here again next week for the next episode of the Whitetail Watch, brought to you by Hoyt's Bowhunting Whitetails. And remember to always dream big.